morning, everyone. Welcome to the Agro-Food Productive Webinar Series, Impact of COVID-19 on the Malaysia Poultry Industry. We have here Mr. Terry Tan, President of FLFAM, as our moderator today. Brief information on Mr. Terry. He possesses more than 15 years of experience in the poultry industry, specializing in breeding farm management and broiler farm management. He is currently the Managing Director of KP Asli Sdn Bhd, a leading kampung chicken provider since 2009, and Pangkal Perdana Sdn Bhd, a poultry feed provider. He also the Director of the Syarikat Sing Long Hang Breeding Farm Sdn Bhd, that is pioneer in the breeding of kampung chicken since 1970s. Aside from managing his own poultry-related businesses, he contributes his experiences and skills to various industry organizations and association. Currently, he is the president of the Penang and Province Wellesley Farmers Association since 2019, since 2017, and the Federation of Livestock Farmers Association of Malaysia since 2019. Now, without further ado, I will now pass the session to Mr. Terry. Please welcome Mr. Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Hanif. Good morning to all of you for being here with us today for the fourth webinar on Agro-Food Productive, Impact of COVID-19 on the Malaysian Poultry Industry, jointly organized by Agro-Food Productivity Nexus, AFPN, and the Federation of Livestock Farmers Associations of Malaysia, FLFAM, and supported by the Malaysia Productivity Corporation, MPC. I'm your moderator for today, President of FLFAM. My name is Terry Tan. Before we begin, I would like to thank all of you for your participation in our webinar and also our panel of respected speakers. The first speaker, Technical Consultant of FLFAM, Dr. Yap Teow Chong. Second speaker will be Senior Advisor and former President of FLFAM, Datuk Jeffrey Ng. And the last speaker will be the head of the laboratory of the Institute of Agriculture and Food Security at UPM, Professor Dr. Shafique. Today's webinar is organized with the following objective. Firstly, is to illustrate the problems of supply and demand that has challenged the poultry industry, especially during the COVID-19 MCO periods. Then we will be discussing the preventive measures that are necessary for risk reduction on exposure and containment of the COVID-19 virus. This webinar will also examine the long-term effect of the pandemic on the poultry industry. As we all know, the COVID-19 virus have infected more than 55 million people and resulted in more than 1 million deaths worldwide. Although there are encouraging news about COVID-19 vaccine, nevertheless, the impact that has caused globally, locally, and is actually pretty immense. Although the agricultural sector is considered an essential sector and allowed to operate throughout the many states of MCO that have been implemented in our country since March 2020. There are various challenges that COVID-19 have caused to the poultry industry. We will discuss these problems and issues in our webinar today. In understanding COVID-19 and its impact on the poultry industry, we will also discuss the preventive measures that are necessary for risk reductions on exposure and containment of the virus, especially where operations and during within this industry is so dynamic. At the end of this webinar, agro players will also gain insights on the short-term and long-term effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the poultry industry, so we can better equip ourselves to overcome these challenges and issues in order to progress our industry further in the near future. Now, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Datuk Yap, to present his topic on biosecurity and biosafety measure on COVID-19 in poultry establishment. Dr. Yap is a veterinarian graduating from the University of Melbourne in 1972. He has worked in the Department of Veterinary Service for 14 years, 20 years in Malaysian poultry industry, and 10 years with WHO and FAO as an international expert on AI and food safety risk mitigation in poultry supply chains in various countries. Currently, he is a technical consultant to FLFAM. Welcome, Dr. Yap. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Terry Tan, President of the FLFAM and our moderator for today. The topic that I'm going to talk about is the biosecurity and biosafety measures on COVID-19 in poultry establishments. Now, this, as you know, the COVID-19 doesn't spare any industries, doesn't spare any people. So, and similarly, we in the poultry industry are very concerned because we are supplying a very important product to the people, to the consumers, a product that is can be called a staple food diet now in our country, and we consume this product every day. By looking at the COVID-19 virus, which is actually a coronavirus, and it can be transmitted by large respiratory droplets directly or indirectly in contact with the infected secretions. The virus is also detected in blood, feces, and urine. Now, of course, it is, as everybody knows, it's a worldwide pandemic now, and many countries are affected by it. In USA alone, the 23 states in July had reported a total of 16,000 over cases, and about causing the closure of 239 meat and poultry processing facilities. The COVID-19 has also affected many other countries, processing plants in many other countries, including in UK, in Europe, Brazil, and even here in Malaysia, in one of our poultry processing plants. So we can rest be assured that unless we have proper biosecurity and biosafety measures, we are going to be affected. Biosecurity, I mean the measures that are necessary to prevent the introduction of the virus. And in biosafety here, I'm taking this a very general definition, not the sometimes very narrow definition of biosafety in laboratories. Here, I'll take it as a definition to talk about the prevention of the spread of virus to the people and the environment. And the objectives of all poultry establishments has to be to establish strategies and actions that are required to minimize the risk of virus entry into the poultry establishment. Now, a poultry establishment can be a farm, a poultry hatchery, a processing plant, or even a distributor. And also to establish biocontainment measures. Biocontainment means to prevent the spread of the virus and therefore the disease. And it is very important also that in all our measures, we must delineate responsibilities and procedures to address all this, who should be carry out the activities, measures that are necessary. Otherwise, everybody thinks that is not his problem, that's somebody else's problem. On the strategies, I'd like to split up into two parts. One is on the awareness, that is the risk communication to all the stakeholders, because if the people do not understand why we need to do it, I think nothing will be done with any commitment or any conviction. So risk communication, bringing about an awareness is very important. And this has to be carried out at all the places, not only at the workplace, but also in the hostel, as well as the transporters who are bringing the workers to and fro to the farm or to the processing plant. Now, there are many ways you can do the risk communication, whether you're doing it by meetings and discussions, posters, pamphlets, and or daily announcements at the establishment. This, having made aware of what the risks are, is important that the management of the establishment can carry out or institute what they call prevention and control measures. And the first thing they should do would probably to establish an emergency response team. This is necessary because everything has to be already prepared beforehand, and rather than try to rush about thinking what to do next. So this emergency response team must be well constructed so that it can carry out all the activities quickly. Now, in the biosecurity, the main thing is to reduce the risk of exposure and infection to all the stakeholders, whether they are the workers, the security guards, the office staff, or the transporters, and even the operators in the canteen and the cleaners, for instance. All that biosecurity measures must take into consideration. On the biocontainment, we have to contain any infected cluster in the farm. So if in the poultry farms, you have more than one house or more than one poultry house, or in a group of farms, you have more than one farm, then you have to contain that particular infection within the farm or within the house and workers in the house so that they do not go on to infect other houses and other farms. And similarly, in the processing plant, this biocontainment is also very necessary so that we reduce the possibility of spreading and transmission from one group of workers or one place to another place. Next. Now, let me just quickly run through about 10 or so intervention measures, risk intervention measures at the poultry establishments. Most of it are fairly general because generalized, so that they're applicable to both in the farm as well in the processing plant as also in the hatcheries. I think the first measure would be the screening of individual body temperatures. I think this one probably everybody is familiar now. Taking the temperature as you enter any facility. We do this under our MCO as well. And also to use personal protective equipment. So I think the most common one to use, of course, is a face mask. But besides the face mask, there are also gloves, boots, apparels that you can put on and that it can be taken out and disinfect quickly. And another important risk intervention measure, of course, is social distancing. I think this is again something that everybody now, having gone through so many MCOs, we are well aware of what social distancing means. Now, in the farm or in the processing plant or in the hatchery, we must make sure that we do not allow external visitors to mix with our plant workers, so that we have a designated area. If and when we do need to meet visitors, then make sure they have a designated area for these external visitors to wait, so that somebody could attend to them, rather than allowing them to go in and talk to the workers directly and so on and so forth. So this is an important physical barrier that the management of any poultry establishment must erect immediately. And it's also very important to change settings of some of the places in the facilities. For instance, maybe at the gate there, now you have to add barriers so that people maintain the queue and maintain the physical distancing. So these barriers become easier to control, implement the COVID-19 measures, the social distancing, the registration, and so on and so forth, so that you can use whether it's MySejahtera or any other QR codes. And this kind of barriers not only at the entry or the entrance to the establishment, the farm or the processing plant, but it should also be carried out in all the other places, like whether it's in a canteen, in the locker rooms, and so on. And we should also make sure that we have disinfecting facilities, both in the farms, in the processing plant, so that the workers can disinfect their hands or their boots frequently. That means you must install foot baths, hand wash stations at the different areas, and make sure that you change the disinfectant frequently. Next one. Now, another concept that is perhaps very important in poultry establishments is to try and practice what is the concept of compartmentalization. Now, compartmentalization here, I'm going to make it a little bit more general by saying that it's not just by physical location, but also you can do it by time sequencing, so that the workstations and the workforce will try not to meet each other. One group cannot meet with another group. This is very important because, like I was explaining just now, in a farm you have more than one poultry house, and make sure that each poultry house is one compartment, so that you should, any problem arise in any one farm, make sure that it doesn't spread to the rest of the farms. Same thing in the poultry slaughterhouse. Maybe normally we will do all the deboning or the packing in one area, one big group of people. It is time maybe to split up the number of packers into two different workstations, and the workstations do not meet each other, or you can have different set of workers coming in and leaving at a separate time in the workstation, so that they're coming in at a different time, different working hours, so there's no physical contact from one group to the other. This is staggering the workers entering or leaving the premises. And even to make sure that we do not have large gatherings in the locker rooms and the canteen, we should also stagger all these break times and meal times, so that we have ability to carry out social distancing effectively. Now, having done all that, it is still not enough. And I think cleaning and disinfection of the work environment before and after every shift, and in some places even in between the shift, this is very important. Now, this cleaning and disinfection is not only on the working place, but it should also be all the staff amenities, whether it's the toilet, the locker rooms, the canteen, and the entry points, and so on. And make sure that proper guidance, proper SOPs, and proper supervision is available to make sure that all this cleaning and disinfections are actually effective. And I think last but not least, I think intervention measure number 10 is to make sure that we have contingency plans, because while workers may be plenty now because of the unemployment situation in some of the parts of the country, but you don't simply bring workers into your farm or into your plant, in the processing plant, because that is asking for trouble. So you must have other contingency plans of how to bring in workers, or how to make sure that the workers you come in are clean of COVID-19. And also, maybe since we are all in one industry, in the poultry industry, we should be able to talk to our counterparts in other farms or other processing plant. Now, let me talk about farms, for instance. In the poultry company, we have many contract farmers. And so, and besides our own company farms. So if one of the houses in the company farm is affected, then we must make sure that we can close the particular house or farm, and then we move on to work with better, closer with some of contract farmers, so that our business will be sustained. Otherwise, we will have a problem of supplying to the market. So these contingency plans are necessary to keep the business going. And this contingency plan in the poultry processing is probably possible when you have a good working relationship or networking with other processing plants, so that if there is a need for you to have assistance from another processing plant, then we will have to do some contract processing with other people with the help of other processors. Now, you have to work all these contingency plans well ahead before COVID-19 strike. So I think this is something that some of the risk intervention measures that can be taken at the poultry establishments. And if next. Now, just to give you some idea of some of these things, sanitation at the farm, at the plant entrance, two small little pictures are disinfecting the vehicle that bring the workers, and the social distancing in the locker rooms. So minimum 1 meter, probably maybe 6 feet apart might be better. The cleaning and the sanitation in all the changing rooms are important. The lockers, the shoe racks, the wall, the boot racks, the shower room, and the floor and the uniform dispenser. This uniform dispenser is a very important feature in many farms and in many poultry processing plants. So the workers may be coming in their street clothes, but they have to change into the plant uniforms, so that you do not contaminate the product, you do not contaminate the packaging that you are going to use for the product. In China, they have found that the virus actually was found in some of the packaging coming out from processing plants. And the virus, of course, even though outside a living body, but it's there, and it can go on to infect the hands and infect other people. So make sure that the uniforms of the workers are given out fresh every day, clean and sanitized, and then at the end of every session or every day, collect them into bins whereby the uniforms can be cleaned and disinfected to be reused for tomorrow. Of course, if they are disposable aprons and so on, then it has to go into another bin whereby it can be disinfected and disposed accordingly. So I think these are all the measures, whether you are at the farm or at the plant. Of course, at the farms, there are also other measures, like taking a shower before you go into the farm proper, so that make sure that you are totally clean before you enter the farm. This not only for COVID-19, has been in practice to prevent the introduction of other poultry diseases and so on. Now, move on to the next slide. One of the things that foreign workers, as a common, the foreign workers are very common commonly used in farms as well as in the poultry processing plants. And it's very important that we have these very strict requirements in the workers' hostel. No entry for any unauthorized people. So in other words, the workers cannot simply invite others to come and share the hostel or visit them in the hostel. So there has to be every day kind of a supervisor or a guard to make sure that this hostel is clean biologically, and of course to make sure that it's clean, cleaning and disinfection is mandatory. Yeah. Okay. Now I was talking about social distancing. One of the reasons why we found that there are many processing plants in US where this COVID-19 outbreak affected many meat packing plants, because a lot of these are assembly lines. In a meat packing plant, just as in a poultry processing plant, as you can see in this picture here, you are looking at an assembly line, so that, and very often to make sure that the plant is efficient, many times the workers are standing side by side each other as they work along the line. So when you are standing side by side, if they are not conscious that social distancing is important, as in some processing plant at the start of COVID-19 back in the US, maybe some of them are still not convinced about social distancing, then it's very easy for the whole plant to be affected very quickly. So make sure that there's this social distancing in all poultry establishments. And it can be done. It means a little bit loss in efficiency, in productivity, but better than to be shut down. Now, emergency response procedures, I think this is important. So when you find that you have an employee coming in with more than 37.5 degrees Celsius, then, or if the employee has been confirmed as a positive for COVID-19, then or direct or indirect contact with the infected person, then you must make sure that the case is immediately referred to the staff nurse and follow the advice and guidelines for the medication. If at any time, and actually it also means the immediately isolation and quarantine of the people involved. And always consult the Ministry of Health, the staff nurse there, or the occupational health doctor on the medical checkups and what are the preventive measures so as to prevent creating a new cluster of infected people. I think that's about what I want to share this morning. And in summary, let me just mention again 3 important strategies there. Creating an awareness through effective risk communication to all the stakeholders. Prevention means reducing the virus entry and the establishment in our farms or in the processing plant, and by that you carry out a lot of disinfection, cleaning, sanitizing, and so on. And also the control measures would include establishing the emergency response team, doing a compartmentalization at the workstation or at staggering the workforce, and also reducing the likelihood of the virus spreading and disease. The term commonly used is called biocontainment. And contingency plans, as I said, to keep the business going is important, so as not to create a shortage of chicken in the marketplace. I think with that, I end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yap. And thank you for his wonderful presentation. Dr. Yap just presented the importance of the biosecurity and biosafety and the strategies to implement them. We all believe that the awareness and preventions and the control measurements are the best method to minimize the risk of COVID-19. Of course, if there is any treatment needed or any shutdown, that will cost us more than this kind of preventive measures. Next, let's welcome to our second speaker, Datuk Jeffrey Ng, to present his topic on constraints on the supply and demand during the COVID-19 outbreak and movement control orders, MCO. Datuk graduated as a chemical engineer from Kansai University, USA in 1995. He is a GM with Chok Chong B Sendian Berhad. Chok Chong B business is focusing on broiler chicken farming and marketing. Currently, he is an advisor for the Federation of Livestock Farmers Association of Malaysia, FLFAM. He was elected as a president from 2015 to 2019. Welcome, Dato', and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, I'm here to give some sharing. Okay, good. The topic that I'm going to talk about is actually impact of COVID-19 on poultry industry. And okay, as I presented in my first presentation before, we were looking at the supply chain. My first presentation was talking about the whole supply chain. So I was talking from the left to the right. But today, I will start my presentation from the right to the left. What have COVID-19 affect our marketing, processing, border farming, and the rest? So let us look at marketing side. So before we look at marketing, we need to understand who are our consumers. We need to understand who are buying our chicken in Malaysia or elsewhere. So Rabobank in 2017 did a survey, basically based on the economic development, food choice, and the food's perceptions. So if we were to look at the downside, when the economy are not strong, or you are still under developing country like South Africa, the food of choice are normally for sustain. So they are more like grain eaters. But then when they move to the second category, then we say mass markets. They are more meat eaters and whatnot. Then the more you move to the right, then the more demand that you have. And last but not least, the food of choice is enjoyment. You know, they are talking about, they want to enjoy the food. So then, you know, you talk about organic and talk about functional food diets and fresh, but not least. So if we were to look more detail into all this, and let us segmentize the whole consumer group. What did they do is Rabobank actually segregated to four extinct group. So if your GDP is below 5,000, then they say your food choice is actually food as needed. So this first group on here, they are actually trying to fill their stomach and they are grain eaters. Malaysia, for 2019 GDP, is rated at 11,400, fall into the second category. Second category we call it economic development countries. So food is normally as a social occasions. So you attend function, you attend dinner and whatnot. And normally you enjoy food, and this group of people eat more protein than the first group of people. And this group of people, because society are more demanding, so a lot of them are working group. So just like our family, we eat out most of the time than compared to cook at house. So eating out is part of our norm in the second group. The third group, like Singapore and Brunei, their income is within 15,000 to 60,000 US dollar a year. So we call this group of people is economic consolidations. And the food of choice normally go for food of as nutrition and well-being. So they are more caring about their health. The last group, which normally is the Scandinavian country, we call them economic reinventions. So food for them is assimilation or enjoyment. So they go for free range, they go for organic. That is what they are. So, Malaysia, have been at the GDP of 10,000 or within the second group for more than 10 years. So what happened, as I said before, a lot of family, because husband and wife work, so they normally eat out. Even the husband work, the wife not work. It's easy for you to get access of hawker food, restaurant food, or whatever. So if you were to look at the economic statistics department, stated that in 2010 to 2015, the establishments of the F&B is about 5.1% growth in establishment. In terms of value, they are talking about 12%. In terms of value added, it is 12%. So this growth of food and beverages segment actually helped the growth of demand in poultry and eggs. So if we were to look at the right-hand side graph, we have been seeing a consistent growth of chicken demand and eggs demand, a rate of about averagely about 5%. And we have been enjoying this growth in the industry for the past 10 years. However, when COVID hit, what have happened? Malaysia started MCO or movement control orders and practicing of implementation of 3S or 3C started. The government decided to limit movement of public and movement around the area if it's under restricted MCO or whatever. And also we banned all the tourists coming into the country. So the biggest hit of all is F&B, food and beverages outlets. As I noted in the bottom of the slide, almost 2,000 coffee shops is estimated to close. And this is reported in Selang alone. And you look at the bottom these pictures, a lot of shop lot is actually up for sale or up for rent. Even the famous Papa Rich is actually heading for bankrupt or could be already bankrupt. Hotel also suffer because no tourists come. And this affect the demand of egg and chickens. The other thing that I managed to pull out from one of the survey done by others is they're looking at the expenditure of family pre-COVID and during COVID or pre-MCO or during MCO. The expenditure of family dropped by 55%, right? However, if you look at this, the segment that they split out, food and beverages for family grow by 27%. The rest are dropping by some of that, like clothing dropped by 95%. The pengangkutan, that means logistics dropped by 89%. But even if we look at these food and beverages that increased 27%, we understand why it increased 27%, because you do not have event anymore. You do not have a function or activity outside where, like wedding dinner or like a company party or whatever. So you have to cook at home. You have to spend pack for to eat at home and whatnot. You cannot dine in anymore. So that will actually prompt the household to keep more money for their food and beverages, and because they have to cook at home or they want to do something very simple. Sometimes they will not just go for chicken or eggs, because I think mostly chicken, because you need to do a lot of preparations. So chicken may not be one of their choice of food if they were to cook back home, because of tedious in preparing them. As I said before, choice of food is tough, because now that you cannot dine in, or even you dine in, there's a limitation of space that you can dine in. So delivery or self-cooking or taking out is choice of a lot of consumer are going for. So if they were to cook at home, normally they need something that is quick for them to do. Because at this current moment, CMCO, school are off, work are still going on, so they do not have a lot of time to prepare their food. So they need something which is quick. And chicken, to be honest, is not there. They also try to consume less during this economic crisis, because a lot of factories is out, a lot of businesses is in difficult time. So we need to adjust if we are in the poultry industry. I try to look at the different segment of the MCO. So in the first stage, when March 18 until May 12, when the government applied MCO, we noted that the demand of egg is good, because a lot of families try to cook cake or make koi. So the demand of egg is very good, fantastic, but chicken is bad. We have farmers which keep the chickens in the farm for more than 60 days, because there's no taker for live chickens. Second period, from 13 May to 9 June, demand was fantastic, because basically, we have a lot of cuti in Malaysia. Suddenly, people are eating in restaurant, and demand was good, except egg. Eggs are dropped a bit, because I think eggs need to do some adjustment because of the surplus of supply. Last period, which is the period currently that we are having, I think both egg and chicken demand drop. Particularly, I think our MCO is quite similar to MCO, where school closes. A lot of places are limited to operate, like restaurant and whatnot. Even dine-in, there is a limited space that you can sit in. So traveling from interstate is also banned, except if you have a needed basis. So those actually jeopardize the demand of both chicken and eggs. Whereas when we talk about processing plant, right, we have, in Malaysia, we only have one processing plant that actually infected with COVID, but then quickly the plant did some good measure, and they come back. Even our veterinary service departments actually put up a note to the public that chicken are still safe to consume, because the only infections is basically the workers, not the whole operations. But based on WHO analysis, it's estimated about 15% of the production in processing plant drop in the world. So I'm not sure how much percentage in Malaysia that is because of this new SOP that affect the processing plant. Related to the processing plant, and also related to a lot of construction site, our Ministry of Work actually instructed that is the new requirement or new ruling for foreign worker housing, or for worker housing, that need to be improved prevent the transmission of COVID-19 in the hostel. And this new rule actually will bring a lot of issue to the farm and to a lot of industry, and I'll talk more about it later on. So in the farm level, basically, during MCO, a lot of moving control are there. Farmer to go into the farm even have a lot of issue. So people, the police try to stop them unless they can justify that they are going to the farm. So we are not talking about even getting spare parts to fix a house and whatnot. So those things have been delayed and causing the efficiency of the farm are actually jeopardized. Even we talk about labor shortage, because now you cannot get whoever that go back for holidays cannot come back. Even the new foreign workers cannot come into the farm or to work in the farm. So with whatever people that they have, they may forego some of the work, especially we talk about good biosecurities. So that will actually resulted in affecting the efficiency or the growth of birds, and directly affecting the costing. As I said just now, also because of marketing slow, a lot of chickens supposed to be depopulated of markets on the right age was not allowed to or not happening. So some of the chicken was actually stuck in the farm until they grow more than 3 kilo or 4 kilo. Even some are more than 5 kilo. And this is not good because of disease management and also animal welfare. But we can't do anything, and by overstocking or overholding the chicken, live chicken in the farm, it will also jeopardize the sequence of input or restocking in the farm. So the supply chain actually have some effect to it. During moving control also, we have difficulty of getting veterinary service because a lot of veterinaries also cautious to visit farm to farm, or also even the farmer are cautious about inviting outside veterinary to go to their farm because part of COVID-19 is to limit as minimum visitor as possible, and that could also jeopardize some of their farm management, especially disease. As I said just now, because of the new ruling for foreign workers, as well as most of us know, chicken housing or chicken farm workers housing, most of us do not actually get CCC or KM. So a lot of workers actually staying in what we call kampong house. And kampong house don't need any certification from the local government or no registration with the government. But then based on the new ruling, if you want to apply or license your hostel for your workers, you need a license from JTK or from the relevant authorities. And when the farmers try to go in to apply for it, they rejected our application, even though we fulfill all of them. It's just because that we do not have that license for the building. We were actually rejected, and this will prompt a lot of issue for the farming, because if you were to look at all the farm and none of them qualify, then none of them will house their workers in the farm, and who's going to take care of the farm? So we hope the government can look into it and basically do some adjustment to it, so that we can still house the workers in the hostel. And I think the hostel that we have provided do qualify as all the requirement that they have. It's just that there shouldn't be the certification become a roadblock for applying their license. Last thing that I'm going to talk about is feed meal. if I were to plot the graph for corn from May, August to December, price of corn jumped, I think, more than 50%. Soybean the same. Palm oil, as Malaysia produce, also jumped from 2,000 plus to 3,005 lately. So what all this mean? This means that the feed cost will definitely increase. As per today, 50 kg feed have already increased 4 ringgit, but I don't think that's enough. Basically, the feed mill are trying to cushion the cost for the farmer. But how long can the feed mill cushion it? That will be a question. So sooner or later, the farmer will suffer this. I have a few conversations with some of the forwarding in Malaysia. Latest thing that I know is actually a container moving into the country from China have been increased by threefold. As what they quoted last time from Qingdao, a container costs them about, a general container costs them about 600 to 800 US dollar a container. Now cost them 2,001 to get that container in. So I think the increase of food bill in the future will be real. And we will see it, I think, in a very short time. With that, I summarize my presentation. I think that for chicken marketing, we need to develop more ready-to-eat products, more easy to serve product for the young family to prepare their food when they need to cook back home, because they need a quick one and they need easy job to actually to serve the family. The other things that we need to look into is maybe on e-marketing. They don't need to go to the web market, or they don't need to go to hypermarkets. When they go to internet, they order and we deliver to the household. That will ease their work, and also avoiding the contamination of COVID-19. As per food processing plant and also for farm, we need to make sure that our workers stay healthy, so that we actually maintain whatever assets that we have, and continue actually supply the needed food to the society. We also need to isolate our operations by limiting visitors. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Datuk Jeffrey. And thanks for your valuable insights, the impacts of COVID-19 on the poultry industry, such as in chicken and egg sectors. Dato also highlighted the impacts of MCO in Malaysia, and of course there are some recommended turnaround steps after the MCO. And we also mentioned that the interruption of the supply chain, such as the container, the cost of the container to Malaysia has been increased dramatically. And this cannot be avoided, but of course the food bill will be increased, like Datuk Jeffrey said, whether it's a consumer to bear for that, or the farmers will bear for that. And anyway, we go to the third presenter, and he will be our last speaker today, is Professor Dr. Shafique, who will be speaking to us on sustainability of the poultry industry in the COVID-19 environment. Professor Shafique is a professor of agricultural economy at University Putra, Malaysia, and is the head of the Agriculture and Food Policy Study Laboratory, UPM. Prof, you always have a bombastic kind of a profile. I will highlight the main point for you, all right? Actually, he has served as a consultant and also trainer to private corporation and government agency, including Khazanah National Berhad, the Economy Planning Unit for Selangor, Department of Fisheries, Malaysia Palm Oil Council, Economy Planning Unit, Prime Minister's Department, and Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. He has published articles in both international and local journals, namely the Journal of Environment Management, Fish and Fisheries Resources Policy, Journal and Greener Production and Fishery Research. And welcome, Professor Shafique. The floor is yours. Good to have you today again.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Okay, I will be presenting something on sustainability of the poultry industry, but you'll be looking more on business sustainability than ecological sustainability, although we can also discuss about that later. Beverage services contribute around 2.8% to GDP. So food industry, we're not looking at poultry specifically here, but you have to remember poultry is the largest livestock sector in Malaysia. So again, poultry is a huge contributor. Livestock sector contributes around 11%, 12%, something like that, to agriculture GDP. Yeah. Now, agro-food sector provides around 2.3 million employment in Malaysia, and it can be divided into agro-food, food processing, and F&B. Now, what is interesting here is you can see quite a bit of reliance on foreign workers spanning all three subsectors, agro-food, food processing, and F&B. Which you're going to see later. I will explain why this current pandemic is putting pressure on the employment sector. Now, on average, Malaysians spend around 18% on F&B. This is going back to a typical expenditure of a Malaysian household. I spoke about this 2 weeks ago in the last webinar. Now, this is an average, but if you go to B40, for an example, the percentage spent on F&B is a lot higher, around 30%. Of course, T20 a lot lower. Now, why do we talk about this? This is important for us to understand that the current pandemic has resulted in a contraction in aggregate demand, and because of that, you are going to see lower income and lower expenditure, and it is currently affecting all sectors in the agro-food industry. Now, I poached a report from Department of Statistics Malaysia that was released only recently, November 13th. And you can get it from the website if you want to get a clearer view of what it reports here. The reason why I chose to talk about this is to discuss with you the contraction in GDP. If you can see, GDP in the third quarter decreased at around 2.7%. But it was a lot better compared to quarter two, where the decline was around 17.1%. Now, this will be translated into a reduction in demand across all sectors. And we all know that the largest sector that is actually suffering is, the sector that is currently suffering from this pandemic is tourism and airline-related industry. Okay, if you look at services, in the last quarter, there was a contraction of in the second quarter, 16.2%. The decline was a lot lower in the third quarter, which is around 4%. Agriculture was doing okay in the second quarter. Actually, agriculture grew by 1%, but right now in the third quarter, it declined to 0.7%. Okay, this is just a, in terms of, we are looking at production. Now, what is more interesting is if you look at expenditure, expenditure on final product, I mean, we're talking about private final consumption, i.e. household consumption, yeah. There was a huge decline of around 18.5% in second quarter. In the third quarter, the decline in private consumption is around 2.1%. Now, this includes food and non-alcoholic beverages, which of course poultry is part of it. Right, so now, although it doesn't look very good, but if you look at other countries, they are more or less experiencing a similar pattern. There is a contraction in aggregate demand all over the world right now. This is not a situation that is only unique to Malaysia. Now, the main question is, if we talk about sustainability, how can we withstand this kind of contraction? How resilient are we? So, going to the agro-food sector, what happened during the lockdown can be dissected into supply and demand. If you look at supply, agriculture, livestock, fishery, they were allowed to work as usual. This is why you didn't see production declining. Of course, there was no contraction in production, but the increase is only 1%. But definitely there were hiccups, especially in the first week of MCO, due to, we're talking about the first round MCO. And that one is primarily due to restriction on traffic and operating hours. That has definitely impacted the workings of the agriculture industry. There was also an issue of foreign labor, and there were also problems of border closure, but that was quite temporary. We did have a problem of oversupply. We can see perishables such as vegetables not being sold at that time, but that situation also was quite temporary before the producers adjust. But the losses are definitely significant. And as far as demand is concerned, demand for fresh produce has declined. And this is really expected when you have a decline in tourism, when there's decline in when there are closures of schools, universities, and people are working at home. You can definitely see a huge decline in F&B. Here, you have the HoReCa market, hotel, restaurants, and catering. This is the primary consumer of agro-food output. Closure of hotels, restaurants, and we can see catering is practically not operational right now. We don't see any kanduri and because of limited gathering and all, we don't see that industry really operating at this point of time. And all these definitely will reduce the demand for agro food output. And purchasing behavior has also changed. Consumers, Datuk Jeffrey mentioned about this just now. Consumers now prefer longer shelf life products than fresh produce. And since a lot of people are cooking at home, they would definitely prefer something that is easier to work with. And you can also see an increase in online purchasing. So that's a background of the a brief background on what is actually happening in the agro-food sector during the lockdown. Now, what are the risks? I mentioned about relying on foreign workers. Yeah, if you see here, if you divide agro-food into crop, livestock, and fishery, these sectors are quite dependent on foreign workers. And if you look at livestock, for example, livestock, the number of foreign workers are definitely more than local workers. So with this current pandemic, of course, foreign labor movement is being affected. Poultry industry, although it is capital intensive, it doesn't use as much labor as other agro-food subsector, but still it depends on foreign workers. And because of that, it is definitely affected by the restrictive movement of foreign workers. So these are the risks that we face or still currently facing. I mentioned about the contraction of demand, and this is how we see it. At the farm level, you have market surplus, and you can see ex-farm prices falling. I'm going to show you this later because there is data on eggs and also standard chicken. And processing and packaging, there were minimal operation. I'm not talking about right now. This is primarily referring to the period of the initial MCO. And also closure of fresh market and minimal operation of the HoReCa industry. Now, the HoReCa industry, to me, has not bounced back. You see a brief period of spike. Datuk Jeffrey mentioned Cuti Malaysia. That was around June. But now I think it has gone down again. Catering, like I've mentioned, has not recovered. And all these will have an impact on, or will be translated to the softer demand for agro-food, including poultry. Now, before I talk a little, more about poultry, a bit more about poultry, I would like to touch a bit on the structure. I did this earlier in my presentation 2 weeks ago, but this time I want to show you where the output are actually going. Okay, referring to the second panel, output can be divided into, of course, domestic demand. I mean, when we talk about output, we're talking about demand here. So demand can be divided into domestic and export demand. I'm not going to touch on export demand. I'm referring only to domestic demand. Domestic demand can be divided again into 3 parts. Total demand. Total demand is, of course, domestic and export, and domestic demand is divided into 3. I have it here: private consumption, domestic intermediate demand, and also investment. That export demand is foreign demand. Okay, now private consumption will be households. I talked about private consumption 2 weeks ago. This is what we buy, what the households buy. And it's quite common to see a large percentage of consumption going directly to households for agriculture produce. This is not only unique for poultry, but it is also the same for vegetables. People buy vegetables in fresh, yeah, not really processed. Okay, what I wanted to touch here is the domestic intermediate demand. It can, the three highest, what I've done here is I have listed the three highest domestic intermediate demand. These are the industries that are using the output from poultry. Number one, biggest consumer is food processing. Second is accommodation and F&B. Third is wholesale and retail. So when we talk about demand, we are saying demand is contracting because of closure of hotels and so on and so forth. And you can see it very clearly in the structure. It's around 8%. So you can imagine, of course, there will be contraction here. And you can definitely expect a fall in demand of poultry output. Private consumption on its own is also declining. So the challenges that they face, let's start with supply. The supply in poultry is import dependent. Although if you see the trend, you know, the domestic input is increasing over time, which is a good development, if you ask me. Now, being dependent on import can be bad sometimes. It's good at times where the inputs are cheap in prices. We are very competitive compared to Indonesia because we are importing corn. I think we have already discussed about that. We're quite aware that global corn prices are low, and we took advantage of that, and we were able to produce our poultry at significantly a lower cost. If we were to produce our own input, the price of the cost of production would be significantly higher. But again, that is at times where there are no disruption in global supply or global movement of commodities. If there are disruptions in global movement, then we will definitely be affected. Datuk Jeffrey was more or less showing us that there is an increasing trend of global commodity prices, and you can see that will definitely be translated into a slightly higher cost of production. Now, even if we are producing it ourselves, if global prices increase, do you tell the domestic farmers not to increase the price of their corn? I mean, it wouldn't be quite fair, isn't it? Especially if that is actually driven by rising input costs, such as fertilizer and so on and so forth. So even if we are producing our own corn, we will definitely be affected by the price hike. But the only thing is, if we are producing our own corn, we can assure the supply. That's the only benefit I can see. Okay, now this is a nice picture that I took somewhere from the internet, which is actually true. You know, feed. If you look at cost of production, the composition of feed is around 70% of total cost of production, and 95% of that is actually imported. We are definitely reliant on imports of feed, but we are using local inputs here. 5% of palm oil and rice bran. Now, if we can increase that composition, then we can definitely reduce our reliance on imported inputs. During the initial MCO phase, there was supply chain disruption, and of course you can see oversupply of poultry output, chicken, broiler, and this is why prices went down, prices tanked. And also foreign labor, I mentioned that a bit earlier. And again, demand, there is a reduce in demand, and there is also, you know, people are reporting that there is a reduction in export of poultry products, but according to my friend from the DVS, I read somewhere that there is people foresee that there might be a reduction in eggs, in the demand for eggs in Singapore, since the Singaporean government is encouraging local production for food security. But as far as export of eggs are concerned, there is no decline so far. Okay, I would like to show you what happened during the MCO. That was the price of standard chicken during MCO. I mean, before MCO, and it went down a bit, and then I think it went up, stabilizes. Of course, you see there are places where ex-farm prices are extremely low. We're talking about standard chicken, the ones that we sell in the market, but ex-farm prices was, we know, and this is not a myth. There are farms that are literally just throwing prices away because they have nowhere to push the outputs. And price of eggs went up at the first week of MCO before it stabilizes. Datuk Jeffrey explained a fair bit just now, but this is the evidence. It went up to 42 cents. And but if you look at beef, for an example, the price went down a bit and then went up. I think right now it has gone up a bit. And cabbage, well, it was low, and then it went up. Okay. Now, the slide's over, but I still want to talk a bit about moving forward. Yeah, how do we move forward from here? I mean, there is nothing much we can do as far as the demand is concerned. As long as this is not an issue, a structural issue of the industry. This is because economic activities are not as vibrant as before because of MCO. If the schools do not open, if universities are still closed and people work at home, you will definitely see demand going down. There's no interstate movement, the planes are not flying, so you are going to see soft demand in the next couple of months until economic activities resume. But whether it's going to settle at a different normal, yes, it will definitely be, because habits have changed. A lot of people are now buying more online than before. So that what the industry needs to do is the industry has to definitely cater for that. People are looking more into convenient food. So again, we talk about processing, yeah, the importance of going to the next level. 2 weeks ago, I talked about the demand of poultry more or less reaching its peak. It's not going to grow anymore, and the growth will only be from processing. So we definitely have to look at this very seriously. But before we do that, before we even do that, we need to look at our existing facilities. We have to make sure that our existing slaughter and processing facilities are up to standard. All these facilities need to be upgraded. And there are also certain practices that we have to ban. For example, open slaughtering. We don't want that. We do not want to be trading warm birds anymore. Now, if anything at all, we should learn from this. If anything that we should learn from this pandemic is how dangerous zoonotic disease can be. I mean, we know that coronavirus is not from chicken or from birds, but we've had SARS before that was transmitted from birds. So we have to have a policy that prevents those kind of outcome from happening. So moving forward, this is what the country needs to do. And as far as solving this current issue, there's no quick quick solution to this. As long as the demand stays soft, what producers need to do is they definitely have to adjust. Okay, I think I've taken my 20 minutes, so probably what I need to do right now is give it back to Mr. Terry Tan so that we can have our Q&A and hopefully answer some of the burning questions. I'm very sure that there are going to be a lot of questions. And
Don't worry, Prof. You have a, if you still want to spend a little bit more on your presentation, is still allowed. But anyway, thank you, Professor Shafique. And thanks for your valuable insights on this topic. Prof has just presented the economy perspective of Malaysia agro-food industry, the challenges of the supply and demand during lockdown, such as raw material cost increase and so on. He also highlighted the pricing impact during COVID-19 pandemic. And he also mentioned that the agro player need to re-strategize their business to adapt to e-marketing. Datuk Jeffrey also highlighted the e-marketing. So I believe that this is a new trend and a new supply chain. He also highlighted that we need to change the perception of buying a dressed chicken. A lot of people, I would say, they think that warm bird will be good, but actually chill farm will be better due to the hygiene and food safety. Because warm bird, I just want to express a little bit more on that, because it's the bacteria will grow on a certain temperature that the warm bird, actually the bacteria will grow. Dr. Yap, the question for you, and but of course anyone also can help into this to answer this. Can you highlight the closure of one processing plant in Malaysia? Closure for goods? Please clarify, but of course there's somebody else say that goods for goods. The closure for processing plants in Malaysia.
Well, I think the particular case of the closure of that one particular poultry processing plant in Malaysia, I will not go into details. That would be not fair to the processing plant. But the plant took very quick and immediate measures, and also with the help of the Department of Veterinary Services, it bounced back very quickly, and it was back in operation, I think, in July. So I think, yeah, the plant did all that was necessary to do and is back in business. And the Department of Veterinary Services, I think that's what Dr. Jeffrey also explained, has also helped to assure the public that poultry coming out from poultry processing plants are safe for consumption.
Thank you, Dr. Yap. And just like to add on for this point, due to the sensitive of the name of the company that we will highlight in general. So yeah, of course, if anything, if factory or whoever they're facing this COVID-19 problems, of course that we need to self-quarantine and close for sanitizing the whole premise. Okay, we go to the second question. All right. Do you have any measures in place to ensure the worker do not mingle with other workers out of their respective grouping, or even with outsider during break time or after working hours? And if they do, is there a way to track?
It's very difficult for the plant management, the farm or the processing plant, to ensure that the workers go anywhere where they want. But mind you, MCO in general is in place. In fact, in Selangor, there's even restriction on inter-district travel, and you cannot be visiting your friends, or you cannot even be having parties at home. So I think in general, I don't think we can say rely on the farm or the plant to take care of everything. Because I think, in general, I think our Ministry of Health has already taken a lot of initiative. And I think the important thing here is also, as I mentioned, about risk communication and bringing awareness to our workers. Because if we find that, if the management of a company find that the workers are misbehaving, then they have the right to take certain advisory action or coaching to the worker, or even taking disciplinary measures. I think all the farm workers and all the processing plant workers have been advised that they are keeping an industry going. They have a job, unlike many other industries where people have lost their jobs. Now, if you have a job and it entices that you must look after your job, means that you must not expose yourself and take unnecessary risk, this message must go down very deeply and very strongly to the worker. And I think, therefore, the commitment by the worker must be there. And as far as the foreign workers living in the company hostels, they are very closely monitored. They don't simply, they are not simply allowed to go out, or are they allowed to bring any friends into the hostel? That is a no-no. So I think we know that many of the farms and many of the processing plants on their own foreign workers, they have taken precautions.
Thank you, Dr. Yap. Basically, that this is awareness and the understandings in the workplace, and all the workers need to take the precaution of this, and they need to take care of their company as well. Like Dr. Yap just said that we still have job to do, and some other industries they totally zero. Like for example, is a tourism. So everybody as an employee or as an employer, we all need to take a very high precaution of this COVID-19 to avoid any interruption of our business. Thank you. And then we go for the next question. Oh, this is very interesting. As Datuk Jeff, Datuk, finally you have a question for you. Show that the impact on both eggs and chicken. There is always a level where farms may have to close due to several losses. The largest and financial able farm may continue to expand, perhaps buying over existing farms is having a financial problem. Give this company a few more years and they will be back to strengthen their business. All right. So,
I don't think this is a question. This is a statement that Dr. Cole have. So it's a free market to me.
maybe you can.
I can't comment much. If you have a very strong finance, then you can always do it. If you still have interest in the farm or the industry, then you can surely do it. But you know, I think the second question that you posed, am I advising the farmer to reduce the production? No, I will never put my words into it, because if I do, I will be prosecuted under my CC. So I will not put that either. Trying to be staying neutral by posting what is happening and not advising anything, right? Mr. Terry?
Okay, so answer is no, and it's a free market. We can do whatever they want.
Yeah, a bit on that. So what Dr. Carr was saying is consolidation of companies do happen. If you look at 1997, 1998, there was, at that time it was the global, the Asian financial crisis. The financial sector was affected, and you can see banks consolidating, merging. So here we're going to be definitely seeing that, because we feel that this is a temporary outcome, right? This happens because of MCO. Okay, and MCO is necessary at this point in time. This is how we view it. Without MCO, we believe that we cannot contain the spread of the disease. And one of the solutions, I'm not saying that MCO is the only solution. There are other things that we need to do. One of the main solutions is to to impose CMCO or MCO to contain the disease. And this is definitely temporary. The MCO is the one that is causing the fall in demand. It's not really, there is no structural issue. It was completely different. I mean, if you look at other crises, yeah, there was some structural issue. 2008, it was a huge increase in petroleum prices, and also some, to me, bad policy on substituting feed for fuel, causing the cost of production of agricultural output to go up, resulting in commodity crisis. And these are all structural, inherent structural problems. But here, this one is temporary. It's not because the poultry industry or the vegetable and fruits industry are not able to produce. There is a fall in demand because of a current temporary measure. So it has to be, probably the outcome is going to be slightly different. But if it's long enough, you're going to see companies that are not able to withstand this kind of demand onslaught. They will close shop and somebody else will definitely come and take over. And even when this is uplifted, we are definitely going to settle at a different equilibrium. So because of changes in behavior and so on. Yeah, so that point on consolidation can happen. You know, if if the demand doesn't improve. But how long can you withstand? I mean, this is the answer that I don't have, but the industry players do have. All right.
Do markets do the testing on imported frozen meat? And what do you do if it is found to be contaminated? Condemn the meats. How do you disinfect the frozen meats? Dr. Yap, maybe you can answer that.
Well, I think at the moment, the government has also taken, particularly DVS, has taken a lot of precautions on where the meats are, where our imported meats are coming from. And markets have the power to sample, to inspect. As to exactly how much they do, I don't have the details. But if you find that the meats are contaminated, or you suspect that the meat are contaminated, I think the logical move is actually to condemn both the packaging and the meat, rather than try to salvage the meat in there and exposing and putting even the people at risk who are handling this product. I don't think it's fair to that.
All right. I answered that already. Okay. So IBV is closer related to COVID-19. Are they from the same genus? Will it likely serve as a reservoir for this virus? Is there a poultry production at risk? Anyway, Dr. Yap.
This question comes from Dr. Vincent Ng, or Dr. Vincent Ng. Yes, the IBV is also a coronavirus, but it's not the same strain or species as the one that's causing COVID-19. So there's no risk. There's no risk that the poultry will pass the infectious bronchitis virus and causing COVID-19 in human. All right, that's definitely no. I did hear that Institute of Medical Research was checking on this particular virus, whether is the possibility of using this virus to develop into some kind of a vaccine for our COVID-19. But as far as I know, nothing came out of it. So, or nothing has come out of it, rather. Nothing has come out of it yet. And so but as far whether is there a poultry production, is there a poultry production at risk? Not at the moment, because I think the veterinarians and the country has been living with IBV for a long time, and the farmers and the vets know what to do exactly. There is a vaccine in the poultry industry for this.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yap. Then we go for the next from Liz Tang. Prof, the question is to Prof and Datuk. The question is, the foreign workers in the livestock have dropped by how much this year? And if production is not affected that badly, how are the producers making up for the shortfall in labor?
I think this one, Datuk Jeffrey would definitely be able to answer. It's very difficult for me to say, but I hypothetically can say that, okay, moving forward, yeah, I think you have to, it's already highly mechanized and automated, but you have to go a bit further on that, and that will probably reduce your dependency on foreign worker. But I don't have the statistics or the figures, but Datuk Jeffrey may be able to help us on this one.
Well, I think the shortfall of foreign workers is real, and it's not now. It has been for some time, because government policy in the past was try to reduce the dependency on foreign labor. You know, the industry has been suffered quite a lot, but you know, as we always say, you know, the farmer will try to find way and mean. Some of farmers choose to how to say, cut corner by not completing the whole work, as I presented just now. They actually did not. If they have enough people, they will do the biosecurity even better, the hygienes and whatnot much better. But then they have to focus some of the job. Lately we suffer some farmer because of lack of workers. Harvesting a bird is slow, so you know, sending to the market is actually being jeopardized. So those are the things that is actually you know, you heard puzzle of this and that. But someone others say you know, I think the whitening of foreign worker now that the government started it help by easing some of the demand. So hopefully, you know, as Dr. Shafique also rightly pointed out, this industry have been applying a lot of mechanism quite established. You know, I don't think we can go even further. But there's still some room for improvement for some of the operations. So we're looking into that. But on the labor issue, we hopefully that the government will look into and help us on that. But I want to stress again on the housing. We really want the government to look into the policy or the standard that they have already set, which is not applicable for agriculture. If they can review some of the requirement for the housing, workers' housing, then it will be helping for us. Thank you.
Datuk, so recently there's a legalizing the illegal workers. So will they help?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, whitening of those illegal workers, because now you cannot bring in new. Those who want to go up can go up. So the net effect is you're going to have less and less foreign workers. So you know, if the other industry have access to foreign workers, if we can convert them into our industry, then that will help. So that's what I'm saying. You know, this will do us a great job of easing the dependency of foreign labor.
Okay, but anyway, because of the levy will not be the same, right? So maybe government should look into this area in more details, how to converting from factory workers to poultry or from poultry to industry. So
I think the levy should not be an issue, because you're converting from industry to agriculture. So your levy that you need to pay is surely will based on agriculture. We should not be in, you know, you have few that is industry and few that is agriculture. Right? But in any which way, you need to house or balance up the foreign workers, because if they don't, then they have problem in staying in Malaysia too. So we need to ease that out.
thank you, Datuk. Then you go for the next question. We still have 5 more minutes left. Then from Muhammad Naib, he is going to ask that I would like to ask, what are the new strategies for an improvement or emergency management strategies in future to overcome the situation in terms of increasing in price of corn, so SPN, it means that feed lah, and drop in the market demand of chicken and eggs, If there is the same impact during, is it the same impact during the SARS in 2003 and it happens again in this COVID-19? So actually many questions in that. But the first one is any improvement emergency strategy, management strategy. How you going, how are the industry player deal with that? And what is methods or strategy to overcome the situations of a price surge of raw materials?
Okay, may I address this first before we get the real answer from Datuk? Talking because mine is going to be very hypothetical and very from a theoretical standpoint, which the industry is already doing. You have no choice but to hedge, but that is a very traditional approach of dampening the effect of price fluctuation. We are all aware that maize is traded in the futures market, right? You can always hedge. You can hedge ahead of time, and the poultry industry is not the only industry that is hedging. Airlines, everybody does that. As far as when you are dealing with commodity, you can always reduce your risk by hedging. But that another form of hedging is what we call reverse investment. You invest in cornfields abroad. I know, but this is definitely going to change your beta of the company. Yeah, it's going to change the risk profile altogether. This is why you see a lot of players are not going to be very keen on this. Yeah, they might also be quite reluctant because they say, "Hey, why would I do that? I am exposing myself to a different kind of risk now. I'm a corn grower now if I buy a cornfield abroad." But that is one way of another form of hedging. I mean, the next level of hedging. But if the government, or we feel that that is really necessary, then maybe the government should provide some kind of incentives for firms to actually do that. Drop in market demand. Well, see, the problem with our producers are this is a product that cannot be stored. Yeah, but if you have an advanced processing industry, then the possibility of you to stockpile is still there. It's more. But if you're not processing it, there's nothing much you could do. So the long run solution to this kind of problem, you have to make sure that you go into further processing. So
thank you, Prof.
Jeffrey can definitely give you a better answer. Please, Datuk.
Don't worry, Prof. Your answer is straight to the point, yes. But Datuk, of course, that he will share his experience how to address this. And maybe Datuk will suggest that they're using some substitutions for the corn and SPM in their feed formulations. Yeah. So Datuk, so you want to add on something on after the Prof. Shafique just mentioned?
To me, let me put it into a better perspective. I think Malaysia, in the whole structures are very well established. You know, we have traders that are actually able to source all around the world. And if we were to look at the price that we buy at the moment, or internationally, or whatever that we are able to get, I think if we were to plant corn, if we were to do it our own in Malaysia, I don't think you're going to get the price that we are buying today in the world. So because that's why I do not encourage Malaysia to go into corn plantation, because the bigger parts of the corn plantation is actually drying the corn. And if you look at how the South American or America's planting corn, the corn was actually dry on the tree because of the dry weather over there. So the cost is relatively cheap. That's why, you know, if you look at how Indonesia and Thai, they have to go through dryers. And, you know, even today, you know, if you talk about corn prices, which is about 1,001 or whatever, Indonesia are buying more than 1,001, it is 1,003, 1,004. So relatively, I think somehow that is that Malaysia traders are very efficient traders. And we still, hopefully that they still remain very efficient to help us source the cheapest ever in the world. About hedging forwards, and everyone doing hedging forward, but then you will never hedge 100% of the hedging. You only do certain percentage based on risk calculation that you have. Because if you hedge too much, then you have surplus. Then, when you have extra in Malaysia, then you have to dump. So you lose money. So then, even if you hedge, then you're talking about restocking. And if you, today, you do hedge at lower price, but then when you talk about restocking, your cost is high. So no one in the trading industry will sell you cheap price. They'll still based on whatever traded price. But then I think that is a risk that most of the feed mill face. I think we'll let them manage that as we reverse or hedge forward until we become farmer. You need to understand that, if you were to plant corn in Argentina or plant corn in Europe or Russia now, your risk is high because weather is going to be a big factor. So if you down there and you get good yield, you may not get good price. So, I don't think farmer will get into that kind of risk either. About others material that we can use in feed formulation, I think Malaysians have tried a lot of food ingredient. Whatever that we are using today are the most efficient, because we talk about palm kernel meal. We tried, but then we have a lot of issue because of the fineness of the palm kernel meal. So I think we should respect the feed mill on backs doing their job in formulating, because it's not just the replacement; it's about the efficiency of the chicken converting the feed into meat. The lowest the feed need to convert a kilo of meat will save you more money than you find alternative. So it is always a balance game in feed mill. What is the question again? To talk about the demand. I think demand, we always face up with the high demand, low demand. But I surely encourage the government to look into stockpiling, because Malaysia love whole chicken. You may not need to do further process. If you do whole chickens, super chicken, it's good to keep for at least a year or two. So during the excess of supply, we can keep some of those chicken, and during the shortage or during the price surge time, we may know that only some location that price surge, we can then deliver all this extra chicken that we keep before to those areas. Then it will balance up the supply and demand, and that will help a lot. If we to look at how US move, US chicken price is almost the same all the years, because the stockpiling of the processing or the industry are so huge that they can actually do a buffer for the pricing. So those are something that we can work on. But then we need to develop the processing industry. We need to develop the cold storage industry. So that's another part that we need to talk about in the next presentation. I will not talk about it more today. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Datuk Jeffrey, for your great sharing. And it's very clear that from your explanation and stated some plans from government should look into that, the stockpiling. I guess we have time to pick very last question, then allow me to jump to this one. This will be quite interesting, that what might be the impact from Livy Taran. What might be the impacts of the contract farming in future due to COVID-19?
You want me to answer?
Yeah, of course, Dato or Dr. Yap can address some of the contract farming, or Dato, you will be the best candidate to answer this, the future after this COVID-19. I think there's a lot of people have been asking this, whether they are, should they go into the contract farming at this time, as a contract farming at this time? And of course, this will be the talking quite related to that is an impact. So, Dato, you feel free to.
Contract farming is actually, as I said before, is actually a contract of providing service. I don't think they're going to have a lot of problem even during COVID-19. The only problem is they need to be very good in it. They need to manage that job very well. But there is also another risk that contract farming are facing, especially lately. The integrator that they work with have financial problem, so they might not have enough payment to them. So they are facing with that. So choosing the right partners or integrator to work with is important. So I don't see contract farmer is going to be fade away due to COVID-19. But I think if they excel, they will be excelling. Because if you would even look at Thailand, our neighboring country, you have contract farmers who are doing breeder for integrator too. And a lot of big company like CP, like Petagro, are depending on contract farmer. The only thing that I really encourage the contract farmer to do is be professional. And a lot of contract farmer that I meet with in Thailand, they are huge contract farmer, and they love just doing contract farming. So I surely think that these contract farmer will continue if they are focusing on their job and do it well. Okay.
We take another two questions that I think is quite relevant to today's webinar. It's from Dr. Muhammad Hisham Faris. So the question is, as far as we are concerned, the demand in poultry, eggs, and chicken have been affected by this pandemic. So what is the drastic action should be taken by government in order to help farmers? The impacts of COVID-19, then what the government, what is it in your point of view for the floor of all the panelists today?
Can I? Sorry. Basically, if I were to look at what the price presented by Dr. Shafique just now, especially we talk about egg and dressed chicken or whole chickens. Dr. Shafique actually pointed out quite clearly that even in the farm level, live chicken was traded much lower in a certain period of time, but the chickens that sold in the market are still remain the same. If you were to look at the media report in TV, the egg producer were complaining about the eggs was only about 21 cents. But Dr. Shafique pointed out that in the market you have to buy at least 30-something cents or 40 cents. So this disparity of the unclear pricings moving from farm to market is huge. And I think the government need to do something on it to help the farmer, and that will actually promote the consumption of meat and chicken, and by then that will help farmer to continue putting the effort into farming. Am I right, Dr. Shafique?
Yes, but Dr. Hisham mentioned about price support at farm level. I think it's timely to look at that. But of course, we don't want that to also backfire. Sometimes what will happen is if there is a minimum guaranteed price, the price stays low at that level. That can also happen. So, but yeah, I mean, the prices should not be allowed to drop below a certain level. I know it's a free market, but you have to understand, if the farmers cannot recoup, then it's bad for the industry in the long run. The only ones that can survive are the big ones, and you don't want all big firms. You want an ecosystem where you have small producers, large producers, everybody together in the whole chain.
Thank you, Dato and Prof. Then we go for another questions from Dr. Hisham as well. Between farmers and wholesaler or retailer already have fixed profit margin. So whatever the situation is, but different with farmers. So what do you think setting up a floor price at farm level would it help farmers? Setting up a floor pricing, would it help farmers?
Doctor, I think you better answer the question. Then I'll add in.
I think it would definitely help the farmers if we have some kind of a price support. But it has to be set correctly. You know, I'm not a big fan of you know, because this kind of policy they might have some repercussion. But you know, if you see that prices going down below cost at times, then it's really really bad. And this is a well-known fact that the farmers have a very slim margin already. So I think if they are protected in some ways, that the price supported at a certain level, I think it can help at the very least the smaller ones to stay afloat. But you know, from the producer perspective, I mean, it's hard to imagine that you wouldn't disagree to this, but I don't know, Datuk.
Since I'm actually educated from US, you know, we always believe in free markets. But when the government imposes a ceiling price, then there's obvious that the government also need to have a floor price to balance the game, because otherwise it's not healthy for the industry. So to answer Dr. Hisham, I believe if you were to have a ceiling price, then you need to have a floor price. Otherwise, might as well do without a ceiling price and let the market flow. Because when you have a ceiling price, as I said before, it's a double sword thing. Because if you set the price too high, then the retailer will just fix that price all year round. That was given to them. Even though the chicken price, farm gate price, live chicken price is low, they will try to set high. When their margin is huge, right, from the farm gate to the retailing, what happened? Multi-level of people joining into the crowd. So you have multiple trade in the crowd. And when the ex-farm price go high, the margin will be squished in all the intermediary. The wholesaler, the retailer will squish. So they, when the ceiling price, when the farm gate price push to that level, then the only thing that we do is they increase the retailing price. So that is not benefiting the consumers at the end of the day. So I don't see how ceiling price help the consumer in this mechanism. And actually, I'm not pro a ceiling price guy, to be honest, because we have been seeing it for 20 plus years. And we're seeing a lot of negative impact to the industry rather than positive, and also to the consumer.
Thank you, Datuk. Due to the time constraint, the rest of the question, please, all the panelists here try to answer. I'm not try to answer. Please answer all the questions accordingly, and they will post it. The MPC will help us to post it to the website. They actually can access that. Once again, that is a wonderful webinar today, and appreciate the talks of all the speakers today for your insightful knowledge on the impact of COVID-19 on the poultry industry. To summarize for today's webinar, Dr. Yap presented the awareness, preventions, and control measurements to minimize the risk of COVID-19, and the awareness of preventive measures are the cheaper strategies to minimize the risk of COVID-19 as well. Dr. Jeffrey has presented the impact of COVID-19 on the poultry industry. After his valuable presentations, all of us should be able to know better on what have been happening in Malaysia after MCO and how to deal with that. And of course, how we're going to handle it, to live with it. Professor Dr. Shafique presented the sustainabilities of the poultry industry in the COVID-19 industry. One interesting slide is talking about the retail pricings of poultry meat is quite stable during the MCO until today. And during the Q&A section that Dr. Hisham will ask, we should look into the pricing transfer from ex-farm to consumers. The egg price fluctuated in the beginning of the MCO was maybe due to the panic buying as well. And that's what we all know about it from the media that we're being reported during the MCO. So, next slide, please. Before we are ending this webinar, I would like to thank our organizer, Agro-Food Productivity Nexus and Federation of Livestock, Farmers Associations of Malaysia, FLFAM, and MPC. And to our speakers, Dr. Yap, Dr. Jeffrey, Professor Dr. Shafique, who has given a valuable and informative presentation today. And especially the MPC team who are helping us, Mr. Hanif, Puan Nur Fatima, Puan Safura, and the rest of the team member. Lastly, to our respected audience to give your valuable time to attend our webinar today. I believe today's topics are the most interesting and informative to private and the public sectors. After this webinar, we should start to strategize our company on how to reduce the risk of COVID-19 and to understand more on the impacts on poultry industry and how to turn around.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Terry, moderator, and all panelists today, Datuk Jeffrey, Dr. Yap, and Prof. Dr. Shafique. Okay, we have come to the end of our session today with Agro-Food Productivity Nexus, AFPN team, and in collaboration with Federation of Livestock Farmers Association of Malaysia, FLFAM. I hope that it has been educational for everyone and the information gained from today's session will benefit you all.